Everybody knows of vegetables that have been grown by Chinese families. They know about a fruit shop that their mum used to go and buy their fruit and veggies from that was run by Mr. Wong or Mr. Chan. But you'd be horrified at how Chinese were being treated.
For most New Zealanders, life means seeing and hearing yourself everywhere you go. But for Chinese immigrants to New Zealand from as early as 1840, there was no such comfort.
Generally, the New Zealanders of the time did not like the Chinese. You may have heard of the term yellow peril. That was sort of like the umbrella term for all of that anti-Chinese sentiment and feeling. They just generally were considered almost, a pest.
Having arrived seeking fortune in the rapidly dwindling gold mines, Chinese immigrants soon returned to their roots.
In the early days, a lot of the Chinese came out for the gold rush, and then once the gold ran out, they had nothing else to do. So they either went into laundry or into market gardening.
That agricultural streak was already in them. So it was easy enough for them to just expand on that and turn that into a business.
Gardening wasn't a romanticized occupation. In fact, quite the opposite.
Before and after school, yeah, you had to work. Like sometimes we'd be washing carrot till about 10 o'clock at night, and we just didn't have the time to do homework. And yet these other people that lived in the towns and that, they had all the time in the world to do their homework, and they were never, ever any good at school. I liked going to school because I didn't have to work when I went to school.
The Chinese market gardening community grew and grew until, during the Second World War, their services were sought by the New Zealand government.
Yeah, so it was recognised by the government that Chinese growers were actually really good at producing greens, and so they wanted to contract with them to grow these vegetables and supply them for the war. They asked the Chinese growers to form the federation to enable them to communicate and get this supply line going.
Many gardeners relied on the Federation for updates on regulations and standards within the industry. So in 1949, the Chinese Growers' Monthly Journal was founded. In 1951, the Growers' Federation invested £4,000 in purchasing and transporting a Chinese typeface from Hong Kong. £4,000 in 1951 is equivalent to $250,000 today.
The Growers' Journal was put together to mainly inform the growers of what was happening in the horticultural industry, new products coming out, new techniques for growing certain vegetables.
And that newspaper didn't actually just go to growers. Like it went to retailers, it went to probably laundry people, to food and produce merchants, to all the fruiterers and that.
Once you're able to have your people, reading and learning about things, you're increasing their knowledge, increasing their standing in the community, and you're producing a stronger community.
Danny Chan was 14 years old in 1951 when he began working on the journal with his father, Lionel, the editor.
Certainly it was a monthly thing, and we work every day, really. Sometimes the whole day. It depends the deadlines and how quickly my dad could write them.
The typeface itself weighed over a ton. With over 7,000 lead characters, setting the type was physical work for Danny and his brother.
I happened to know a bit of Chinese, so I was the one who picked the type. And then basically I just toss it over to my brothers, and then he would put it in. Oh, we print over 800 copies. It's been distributed throughout New Zealand to all the Chinese growers. In those days, just about every Chinese growers get a copy of it.
With no other Chinese language publication in New Zealand, the Growers' Journal took on a greater responsibility of informing its readers of more than just the price of fertilizer.
As time went on, they realised that it could actually be a way of communicating with the Chinese community in general. So they started adding in information about events happening in China, particularly political events.
In 1972, after 23 years of publishing, the Chinese Growers Monthly Journal printed its final issue.
The journal folded because of financial reasons. It's making losses for quite some time, and with a reduced number of growers willing to donate or support it.
I mean, lost its purpose because, like the older Chinese, the ones who couldn't speak English and couldn't read English, well, a lot of them passed away.
Since then, Chinese market gardening has continued, with fewer and larger gardens. Many of the smaller gardens have folded as younger generations seek careers in other industries.
New Zealanders don't really know a lot about our history here, even though we've been here since the 1840s. With the government's recent announcement that there is going to be more in the curriculum about our early New Zealand history and our Māori history, we're hoping that, you know, there's a little place there for us as well, for our Chinese New Zealand history.
For 2 decades, a ton of lead characters provided the only formal connection between Chinese New Zealanders. After almost 30 years of laying dormant, the typeface was recently retrieved from the Yixuan garden sheds. The characters are being recorded and restored at Waitemata Press in Wellington. They've helped tell many stories of Chinese life in New Zealand, and with a little care and attention, we'll tell many more.